Hello, everybody. These next 5 videos are going to be the solution videos to your homework assignments. So just step by step so you can see how you solve if you get stuck, how you solve all the problems. All right, the first one to get, this is 12.1. The first question, give a geometric description of the set of pairs in space whose coordinates satisfies the given pair of equations. X equals 3, y equals 1. Choose the correct description below. Okay, what this means is there's a plane going through the x and y. The only plane that's not being there is the 0 axis. So the only way it's not there is if z equals 0. That means it is parallel to the z axis. So the only one, x is 3, y is 1, so that's not right. Okay, but also says it can't be a point because in 3 dimensions we don't deal with exact points. We deal with each of these are planes, so that can't be right either. So it's got to be B or C. It can't be parallel to the x-axis because it's already an axis there. It's going to intersect it. So the answer is B. Question number 2. Give a geometric description of the set of pairs and set of points in space whose coordinates satisfy the given pair of equations. All right. X squared plus y squared equals 4 represents a circle. This is a circle with center at 0, 0. And the radius is the square root of that is the radius is 2. Remember, the equation is supposed to be equal r squared. So since 4 is r squared, to get r, we square root both sides. And z is equal to -6. So it's a plane on z equals -6. So the circle is on the z-axis at the center of 0, 0 and the radius of 2. So which ones are these? The line passing through? No, it's not a line, it's a circle. It's not a line, it's got to be a circle. It's got to be one of these two. Since the center is at 0, 0, remember, x squared in this equation of a circle, it's x minus x sub 0 squared, y minus y sub 0 squared equals radius squared. Since we have x squared, the only way that could be is if that equals 0. Likewise, if that equals 0. So it's 0, 0. The answer is C. Question number 3. Give a geometric description of the set of points in space whose coordinates satisfy this. Okay, now we have x squared, y squared, z squared equals 4. And y is equal to 0. This represents a sphere since it's 3 dimensions. Here's a circle, but then it also rotates around the z-axis, so it's a sphere. Centered at 0, 0, 0. But now saying that y is equal to 0. Since y is equal to 0, we have this equation. So it's a circle on the xz plane. It's not a solid upper sphere because remember y is equal to 0, so it can't be the first one. And it can't be the last one because it's got y values. So it's got to be B or C. They're both circles, yes. The other one's interior, but this is more accurate because it's on the xz plane. And question number 4. Find the distance between P1, P2. The distance formula, remember, that's the magnitude. Is the square root x2 minus x1 squared, y2 minus y1 squared, c2 minus c1 squared. So we have 6 minus 3 squared, 1 minus 5 squared, and 2 minus 2 squared. 6 minus 3 is 3 squared, negative 4 squared, and that's 0. So 9 plus 16 is 25. Square root of 25 is 5. So that's the distance. Where's the next page? All right, question number 5. Find the distance from the point P to the XY axis, YZ axis, and the XZ axis. So if we have a point to the distance to that axis is actually the Z value, the Z distance. So since this was on the XY plane, the distance is 2. Remember, distance has to be absolute value. The distance to the YZ, so that's the distance of the X-axis. Since negative 5, the distance is 5. And likewise, the XZ is actually the distance of to the Y, which is absolute value of 1, which is 1. All right, so that's those distances. Okay, describe the plane perpendicular to each of the following axes at a given point with a single equation or pair of equations. All right. So we're looking at the z-axis at that point. The z-axis of this first point, the point is negative 6, 3, 7, is a z point, which is 7. Let's see. We're describing the plane perpendicular to each of these. So if it's going through this perpendicular to the z-axis, it's z equals 7. Same logic, if it's perpendicular to the x-axis, this point is negative 2, negative 2, negative 1. So it's perpendicular to the x-axis, so it's x equals negative 2, A. And the last point is at 1, negative 3, negative 7. It's looking for the y-axis, which is y equals negative 3. All right. Next sheet. Next set of equations. Question number 7. Describe the given set of with a single equation or a pair of equations. The circle, the radius 1, centered at 0, 7, 0, and laying on the XY plane. Remember, this for all of these three, the equation of a circle is this. So since x is 0, we're looking at the XY plane. So with the XY plane, what do we know for sure? We know that the z value is 0. That's also what it says there. So since the z value is 0, that's gone. And since x sub 0 is 0, we have x squared. The y value is 7, and the radius is 1. So we're looking for x squared plus y minus 7. So its answer is C. For the YZ plane, so again, we have the same thing. We have x is 0, so it's just x squared. The second one, since y is 7, it's y minus 7 squared plus z squared equals 1. But since it's the YZ plane, x is equal to 0. X is gone, so we're left with x minus 7 plus z squared equals 1, and x equals 0. So the answer is A. Here, y is 7, and that's the plane I'm going through. So we have x squared plus y minus 7 squared c squared equals 1. If y equals 7, squared, not 0. So that equals 0. So we have x squared plus c squared equals 1, and y equals 7. So it can't be these two because of y. It tells us y equals 7. So it's got to be C or D. X squared for y equals 7. No, so it's got to be C. So let's look at number 8. All right, describe the given set with a single equation or pair of equations. The line through the point -1 to -1 parallel to the x-axis. If it's parallel to the x-axis, we just have the y, which is 2, and z equals -1. So it's A. If it's parallel to the y-axis, then we have x equals -1, c equals -1. B. And if it's parallel to the z-axis, we only have the x value and the y value. X is -1 minus 2, so the answer is B. All right. That's it for that one. Because okay, if it's parallel to it, that means the axis is not being crossed, so there's no value in it. All right, number 9. Write the inequalities that to describe the given set of equations. The interior of a sphere, radius 7, centered at 1, 5, 8. So we have x minus 1 y minus 5, z minus 8. 7 squared, or it's 49. That's the equation. But we only want the interior, so it's got to be less than that. So it can't be less because it's less than equal. That includes the shell. We don't want the shell. So they're all minuses. So it's got to be A. But again, if it equals, that's the actual shell of the sphere. But we want the only interior, so it's less than. Conversely, if we want the exterior, we want everything outside of it, then we'll have the same equation. But it's greater than 49 because we don't want to include the shell. So minus, 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 greater than, so its answer is B. And 10, let's look at number 10. Find the center and radius of the sphere. Recall that the equation of a sphere where the center is at x0, y0, and z0. And the radius is whatever the square root of that number is. So since we have here, and it's always the easiest way to look at this, because what we have to do is we want these to be 0, because all this represents is a shift from the origin, the original number, to the next number. So like we have x plus 9. If we set that equal to 0, x equals -9. Again, it's just always the opposite of what's inside there. So the center, since that's a positive 9, it's got to be -9. There's nothing there, so it's 0. It's -9, so it's positive 9. And the radius, since it equals 12, r squared equals 12, square root both sides. This is 4 times 3, square root of 4, square root of 3, 2 radical 3. So the center is at -909 and 2 radical 3. I've got 2 more questions. All right. Find the formula for the distance from the point P to each of the 3 axes. We're looking for the x-axis. So the distance formula is square root of x minus x sub 0, or x2 minus x1, y2 minus y1, z2 minus z1 squared. But since we're looking for the x-axis, x equals the x sub 0, because x minus x sub 0 is equal to 0, so that disappears. So we're looking for this equation, the y squared plus z squared. So the answer is C. Likewise, since we're looking for the y-axis, the y disappears, so we're looking for the x plus z. So the answer is C again. Same thing for the z-axis. Since it's no z, so it's only to do with the x and y, it's C. Find the perimeter of the triangle with vertices A, B, C. All right, so this one's going to take some work, because in order to find the perimeter, we have A, we have B, and we have C. We have to find these distances. And the perimeter is distance 1 plus distance 2 plus distance 3. So the first distance is going to be the distance from A to B. So it's 5 minus -1 squared, -4 minus 2 squared, 2 minus 2 squared. This becomes plus, so it's 6 squared plus -6 squared, and that's 0. So 36 plus 36 equals this square root of 72. It can be simplified because 72 is 36 times 2. Square root of 36 square root of 2 is 6 radical 2. So that's our first distance. Distance 2 is from B to C. So we have here 7 minus 5. The y's are 7 minus -4. And then the z's, 3 minus 2. Seven minus 5 is 2 squared. This becomes a plus. 7 plus 4 is 11 squared. 3 minus 2 is 1 squared. 4 plus 121 plus 1. 25, so square root of 126. We know 6 times 6 goes into 12 twice, 6, which becomes 2 times 3 times 3 times 7. We have a pair of 3s that comes out. So it's 3 radical 14. And D3 is from C to A. So we have 7 minus -1, 7 minus 2, and 3 minus 2. So that becomes plus. So we have 8 squared. 7 minus 2 is 5 squared. 3 minus 2 is 1 squared. 64 plus 25 plus 1. 8990, so square root of 90, which is same thing as square root of 9 times 10. Square root of 9, square root of 10, which is 3 radical 10. So add up all these 3. So this one, if you add up this, put them in the calculator and add it up, and there's your answer. Well, let me get my calculator and we do it. Okay. So it's 6 times radical 2 plus 3 times radical 14 plus 3 times radical 10. The answer is 29.2 cubic units, whatever it is, or units, whatever it is. All right, so that's section 12.1. Good luck, everyone.